It's a little after 5, and we're going to begin the workshop for February 2nd, 2012. Everyone does need to remember that we are taping this. It is live. Unfortunately, we do have 2 sick aldermen tonight. They're quite sick, so please remember them. And we still have Miss Sherry, who's out of town. But remember every one of these that's not here with us tonight. The prayer will be by Alderman Waldron on Tuesday, and the Pledge of Allegiance by Alderman Broker. And you may have some guests with you. Could be, I think, 2 from the Civil Air Patrol. Right. 2 young people. So, if y'all don't mind tonight, we do have a lot of business to cover. We are going to start, if you'll look on your packet, it'll be on the back, under consent agenda items. Number B, approve change order number 1 for the water treatment plant sludge lagoon cleaning project. Mr. Griggs, if you want to come on up, he has another meeting that he must attend tonight.
To remind you, there's a backwash sludge lagoon at the water treatment plant. When they backwash their filters and the clarifiers, it goes out there and settles and it accumulates and has to be cleaned out periodically. And recently it's gotten so deep it's interfered with the operation of the backwash recovery unit. And the backwash recovery unit, if you remember, takes that water, instead of pumping it into sewer, it takes it and runs it back through the water treatment plant, so we recover that water. We also save money on the water that doesn't go to the sewer plant. And at the present rate, when that operation is running, it saves about $10,000 a month on the sewer bill. So the water lagoon, last time we took bids, and it was to clean it out by bid was $43,000 per cleaning, and it was cleaned in 2007, 2008, and then 2010. The city took bids in November to clean it out again, and there were 2 bids. One bid was USI Environmental out of Chattanooga, and their bid was $23,000. The second bid was a company out of Nashville, and their bid was $52,000. So it's quite a difference in price. The $23,000 was not only low bid, it was almost half of what we'd paid for previously. So it looked like a good bid. Unfortunately, after the bids were received, Metro Nashville came out with some conditions, which are in your packet. It looks like this. Last time we disposed of it on some land application. This time we got permission from Metro to put it in a sewer, and that's one of the reasons we got lower bids this time. And the manhole we picked was right here before the pump station. It's the biggest sewer pipe in the city. It's a 24-inch sewer pipe. It's right before the pump station. But Metro came up with these conditions, and the ones that hurt us was they restricted the hours of operation of the cleaning to 7 a.m. to 4 p.m., which is 9 hours. The bidders, both bidders, we talked to them right after the bid, they were both planning on working 14 hours a day and just get it done quick. They were planning on bringing 4 or 5 trucks in and get it dumped quick, but another condition Metro put in on us was 11,000 gallons an hour, which is roughly 2 trucks. So not only did the contractor get restricted on his hours, he got restricted on the amount of equipment he could use, and that stretched out his time period. He asked if the city would pay him another $10,000 for his extra time, because instead of coming in and doing it in 1 week, he could see that he was going to have to break and come back for a second week. We negotiated with him on the telephone in the mayor's office, going back and forth, and he agreed to $7,000 increase, which I thought was very fair. So this is a change order to increase his price $7,000. It gets it to $30,000, which is still much, much less than what we paid previously. And it's my understanding, well, I know for a fact, he showed up this past Monday. He lost most of that day because he was getting his equipment here and set up and back and forth. Tuesday, he lost that whole day because there was a pump problem at the water plant. But I understand from Jerry that he worked a full day yesterday and a full day today. He's made an agreement. He and Thomas Champagne have accommodated each other pretty well, and Thomas has agreed to do what he's got to do to let him come back and work tomorrow. He won't finish. He'll come back next week and hopefully finish next week.
Okay. And also, all of this was discussed with Bruce and with our attorney. We made sure everything was done by the book. according to this change order and the conditions that we fell under. So, anybody have any comments, questions? Anything else we need to bring to light on this? I think it's pretty much, it is what it is. When Metro says we have to do, unfortunately, we have to do.
Yes.
So, Bruce, do you have anything to add?
No, you covered everything.
Thank you so much, Bill.
Thank you for letting me go early.
Okay, appreciate it. All right. Okay. Tonight, we do have a presentation. We have Uri Howell and Associates to go over our yearly audit.
Appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm Greg Howell with Uri Howell and Associates, and I'm here to present your June 30th, 2011 audit. Your audit did receive an unqualified opinion, which is the highest level opinion you can receive. It means that your financial statements are presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. As you're aware, in the prior year, your report received the Government Finance Officer's Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. This means your report meets the highest standards in reporting and that you go far beyond the minimum in providing your citizens with good financial information. As in the past, I've prepared some graphs which summarize some of the financial activity and trends for the prior year. So if you'll turn to those, we'll go over those now. The first graph breaks down your revenues by source. You received about 60.8% of your revenues from local taxes, about 22% from intergovernmental, meaning from the federal, state, and county government, about 9.6% licenses and permits, about 4% fines and penalties, and the other being in other and miscellaneous and rents and interest and that sort of thing. The graph at the bottom of the page shows your expenditures broken down. You spend about 84.6% on your day-to-day operating expenses, about 10% on your debt service, and about 5% on capital outlay. One thing you might note from this graph that capital outlay in the prior year was about 10%. You spent about $750,000 on capital outlay in 2011, about $1.5 million in 2010. So you really cut back on your capital outlay in 2011 as compared to 2010. The next page takes your day-to-day operating expenses and breaks them down by your departments. You spend about 50% of your day-to-day operating expenses on public safety. That breaks down about 37% for police and about 13% for fire, which totals up to 50%. You spend about almost 20% on general government, about 15% on streets and stormwater, 7% on recreation, 4% on library, and 3% on health and welfare. The bottom of the page breaks down your salaries and wages expended. You spend about 54.5% on public safety, which is primarily all police departments that you contract out your fire, about 19% on general government, 12.5% on streets and stormwater, 6.8% on recreation, and 5% on library, and about almost 2% on health and welfare. The next page takes your revenues and shows the trends over the last 4 years. We did show a little increase in your local taxes from the prior year. Your property taxes were up about $300,000 from 2010, and your sales tax was up about $200,000 from 2010, which is a good sign. Shows some improvement. Fines and penalties were down. The other revenues were about the same. Fines and penalties were down about $180,000 from what they were in the prior year. The bottom of the page shows your expenditure trends. I think this graph reflects your good budgetary controls you've had over the last few years. Your day-to-day operating current expenditures just show a small increase each year, basically reflecting inflation. Your debt service has been about the same over the last few years. As I mentioned previously, where you've had to cut back because of budgetary constraints has been in your capital outlay. It's gone down in the last 3 years. Like I said, back in 2009, it was about $4 million. In 2010, it was about $1,580,000, and in 2011, it was about $750,000. The next page shows your day-to-day operating expense trends. General government was down just a little bit. Public safety was up just a little bit, basically because of salaries and supplies being up. Streets and stormwater was up just a small amount, basically related to repairs to roads, and your other departments were pretty much status quo as what they had been in the prior year. Bottom page shows your salaries and wages trends. Really all departments salaries and wages were held pretty constant except for public safety. They were up just a little bit from the prior year. The next page of the graph at the top is your medical insurance fund, which is your employee insurance. Basically, the premiums that you charge, that was charged the city and the employees, was about the same as what benefits were paid out. I think the difference was about $20,000. You paid out about $20,000 more benefits than you charged in premiums. So that fund remained fairly constant from the prior year. I apologize, Let you catch up there. I apologize. A couple pages or more over there. A couple more over. Next one, I think. Right there. Medical insurance is top. At the bottom of the page is the water and sewer fund. As you know, the revenues have been exceeded by your expenditures the last few years. In 2010, the loss was about $1.7 million. In 2011, your loss was about $2 million. I know you've taken steps to address that, and this year's audit should show the results of the steps you've taken to address that situation. The next page shows your debt service. The green line being your water and sewer debt service, and the red being the general long-term debt. Over the next few years, your water and sewer debt is going to be at about $1.5 million a year, and your general long-term debt will be about $1.3 million per year. You start getting some decreases in 2017, and then some more decreases in 2023 when some of your debt issues begin to be paid off. At the bottom shows your city and county tax rates. You've been able to hold your tax rate pretty much constant over the last 10 years. Even though there have been some reassessments, the rate itself has remained pretty much constant for the last 10 years. The next page is your fund balance. I think this is a pretty telling graph in that you've been able to maintain your fund balances even though we've had some pretty hard economic times. In 2011, the total fund balance went down about $200,000, and the general fund balance went down about $100,000. Your general fund balance at the end of the year was about $3.9 million. The rule of thumb is to have about 3 months operating expenses in your fund balance, and that's just about what you have. So you're at what's considered to be a safe level of fund balance, but you wouldn't want to go too much. You wouldn't want to go any lower than that. That concludes my presentation. I did have a few findings that I've gone over with your staff, and you've already started addressing those, and I think got those under control. I'll be glad to address any questions or comments at this time. Well, it's been a pleasure serving the city. You've got a good financial staff. They do a good job, and I appreciate the opportunity to work with you.
Sounds good. Bruce, do you have anything? These graphs, I think they're looking
They're
better.
very telling. I tell you what, I believe you've positioned yourself, if the economy can ever take off a little bit, you've positioned yourself to really be able to do some good things here at the city. But just as all other governments are, you're struggling right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving right along. We have several presentations on Tuesday. That's a pretty exciting time. Let's go on to consent agenda items. Starting with A, I think Ms. Felicia, you have
I have several.
several of these.
We have several things tonight.
Okay.
In November, we bid the asphalt paving for the year, and Greg and I discussed it, and he wanted to do some digging and check things before he decided who he would like it awarded to. And at this time, looks like Hoover would be better fit for the city to go with Hoover on that. Bid out service trucks for the sewer department. A brand new truck is only about $4,000 more than the used one that we had approached last month. So we would like to have, it's $21,675 for a new one. Now Ted Russell Ford gave me, they said a really good deal for $21,171, but it had hail damage. And I just really don't think we want one with hail damage. And the 2011 was $21,871, so I really would like to just go ahead and get them from Ford of Murfreesboro. Also, we would like to get one for the water department under this bid contract. They have 2 in their budget, and he would like to get one of these for his service truck also.
Okay, so we'll be voting for
We'll be buying 2, yes.
Okay.
For a total of $43,350.
Times 2.
We'll be buying 2 of these,
Okay,
one for sewer and one for water.
okay.
Water meter bid. We've had a lot of issues, even goes back to when Mr. Walker was Public Works with these meters. Badger is the better of the ones. Badger will also be able to go to the electronic read easier than trying to go with the AMCO. So after speaking with Robert Brooks, he and I both agreed that Badger would be the way to go with that. And Greg also was fine with that. Now the one that I have spent the most time, one of the ones I spent the most time on is the uniforms for the guys at Public Works and at Parks. We discussed it, and Parks wanted to change their color to a khaki and or a tan khaki color and green. We kind of thought that would be a good idea, so they're going to go with that color, and the other guys are going to stay with the blue and blue. The guys at Public Works, all are going to have cargo. And from everything I could figure, Cytec still came in at a better price. Can't beat their service and hitting things head on when there's an issue. So we would like to have that awarded to Cytec so they can go ahead and start ordering all the new uniforms. Okay, that's the sidewalk. I got that letter. I have a copy machine for the Public Works building. At one time, we had several copiers at the library, and we took one and moved it to Public Works because they didn't need 5 anymore, or actually it's 3 in a printer. So at this time, that whole contract's coming up, so we're looking at $207.10 a month for the one at Public Works to have fax card added so they can fax directly from the machine also. And $150 a month for their maintenance.
That's actually per quarter. That's actually per quarter.
Per quarter, yeah, the maintenance is per quarter, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, that was a little high.
Maintenance is per quarter.
Okay.
And they give us pretty good amount of images too. They also supply the toner. Then for the library, it'll be $750, $290 a month with their quarterly rates on their maintenance agreement. They'll supply all the ink for those too. And I'm really getting excited. I'm really wanting to go ahead to something else, but I guess Chief wants to wait on that.
Okay.
I've got another bid that I've done, so we'll talk about that later.
Okay, so we've got all of you for A, right?
Except for,
All of those.
Except for number 5.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
with
we're gonna talk
Felicia.
about Fergus Road, and I'm gonna let Kyle talk
Yeah.
about that. That was,
Okey doke.
but that's it for now on that.
We'll
I
see
do
you
have
back.
the other one.
Okay, Mr. Brown?
Should have in your package a recommendation from WISE where we bid out the Fergus Road sidewalk project that we've been discussing for a while now. And I got a recommendation in here for Sessions Paving. The amount is shown there. And I've got the plans here if you have any questions on that, or if you've got any questions about the amounts. Just let me know what those are, but other than that, everything looks pretty good, and I concur with Weiser that Sessions Paving is probably it's definitely the lowest bidder, and I think it should be probably the one we award to. Keep in mind, though, this has got to go to TDOT for their,
Right.
basically with their concurrence, so it's not final until they say it's final, since their money's involved with it. And it did come in under what we was projecting for the budget, so.
We like that. Wonderful. Any questions? Bruce, anything? All righty. So you're good to go too?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, let's move right along. Let's go to C, approve amendment number 2 to the agreement between the Tennessee Department of Transportation and the City of Laverne for the Hurricane Creek Greenway project. And I believe that's you as well, Kyle.
This is the one where we shifted money over from the Stones River Greenway that state said we didn't have, and they said we did.
Right.
We didn't want to lose the funding, so we shifted over to Hurricane Creek Greenway. We had the meeting with the state, and they basically said we need to move on this project, get the money that in line. So that's what this is basically doing is changing Exhibit A, that is the breakdown of the money. And just as soon as we get approval on this, then the state will obligate funding, which hopefully, even if there is changes to the highway bill, hopefully they won't rescind our money because we've got some obligated. Now we will, just because we're doing this portion, we're still gonna have to work with Phyllis and Finance and probably everybody to try to figure out where we're gonna get the money for the match, because
Right.
as you can see, the figures in this went from about $144,000 project to close to a $2 million project. So you're looking at a substantial amount of money to match, because we do have a 20% match on this.
Yep.
But at this point, this is just amending Exhibit A for the amounts that you see there for the PE, the right-of-way construction. And then we may be amending this again in the future for project description and things like that, but we need to do this first to move forward.
Any questions? Okey-doke. And D, approves online auction of surplus items. Okay.
Mayor, I think everything in here is from the library. Looks like they're cleaning house quite a bit. I think there's 97 boxes of books and magazines and audio and video things, and plus various cases, cassette, VHS, and a few other miscellaneous items. So that's all we have this month on the surplus.
And I hear the library is looking quite beautiful now. So we'll have to do a tour when they're finished.
Absolutely. We'll be ready Monday.
All right. Okay, moving right along. All right. We're moving to new business. Motion to appoint or remove board members. Number A is Smyrna, Rutherford County Airport Authority. Mr. Graham Coates' term on the Airport Authority expires in March. This appointment has to be approved by the Rutherford County and the town of Smyrna before he will be appointed back to the board, but we have to go through the process. And Mr. Coates wishes to remain on this board and has done a wonderful job for the city, and we'd like to make sure that he stays on that board.
How many boards is he on already?
Not enough. Don't scare him, Tom. All right, we do have a position open for the Stormwater Appeals and Advisory Board. This is a very easy board. You meet once, maybe twice a year, and it's a very interesting board. So we need someone to please step up, fill out applications to be a part of this board. I think you would enjoy it, and it's not very time consuming. So that's a good board. We do have 2 positions coming open. No, they expired in January for the Board of Zoning Appeals. That is the terms of Mr. Graham Coates and Mr. Craig Pollitt. And I think both of those applicants do wish to remain on this board. And I've noticed that we have a new applicant, Mr. Christopher Mitchell.
We actually received that application back in September when we were filling
Okay.
the position that we had to change. So I've had his on file for
Okay.
a few months now, so.
Well, we'd like to make sure on any of these other boards, making sure, because we want anyone that's interested on getting on these boards, we want to keep them interested and see if we can get them on some of these boards. Next, we have the Construction Board of Adjustment and Appeals. Looks like I have two terms that are expiring. That's Mr. David Waldron and Kevin Rowland. And have you spoken to either
I've
of
sent
those?
messages to both of them. I
Okay.
will know by Tuesday night if they
Okay.
want to stay on there. We've been advertising those as well.
Okay.
Not received any other applications at this point.
Okay. And last, we have expiration of a term by Mr. Mark Dodd, who is on the Greenway Advisory Committee. And if I were guessing, I would say Mr. Dodd would wish to stay on that board.
I would believe
There
so.
again, I've left a message for
Okay.
him. I've not heard back from him yet.
Okay. Next, we have two terms for the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee, Mr. Don Lear and Mary Jane Skinner. And it looks like both of them are wanting to stay on that as well. They do a real good job. All right. Moving right along. Number 6. First reading, Ordinance 2012-01, an ordinance to amend Title 13 of the Laverne Municipal Code regarding property maintenance regulations. There you are. Mr. Beard, you want to step up and help us through this? Welcome. Derek is graciously taken over as our codes director. Thank you for stepping up to the plate and
Thank you.
giving Kyle a little breathing room now at Waldron Road, and we thank you for doing that.
Basically, this is updating our property maintenance regulations, which are, if you look at our code, some of them are from the 80s, some of them are from the 90s, early 90s. There's some language in there as far as liens and stuff that was not concurrent with what state law says. So some of that language has been changed, but basically we're just going to take out our existing Title 13 and replace it with what's in the packet.
Okay?
And there are some changes in language that is a little more specific as far as materials that are allowed to be on property, things of that nature, that was never in there before. And when we'd get a complaint, we'd go out there and go, we really don't have a code that addresses this. And we're trying to clear some of that up.
So we need to read this very, very carefully, because actually, we've been working on this for quite some time now, trying to get it exactly looking and do like we were wanting it.
I think it was originally sent out somewhere around a year ago to
Yes.
all the members.
Yeah, yeah. So, we need to also make sure Evan takes a look at this far as violations and penalties, making sure that we have the teeth we need now to when people don't abide by our ordinances and our property maintenance, that we have the teeth we need to get things cleaned up.
The new ordinance has changed the language of some of the cleanup process.
Okay, good.
And it allows for us to ask Evan to do liens or try to reclaim money in other ways. But as far as a penalty, the most we can actually issue is a $50
Right,
fine per
right.
day.
But let's make sure we read over this in case there's any little thing, but we really, really need to get these on the books. I mean, this is not, like you said, we've been working on this and wanting this, and this has been a lot of our complaints in the codes areas, our property maintenance issues. So now's the time we can get these cleaned up. Anybody have any questions, comments?
No, ma'am.
Bruce? See, I'm remembering you guys tonight. I'm doing really well.
Tough night for you.
Well, see, he's sitting beside me tonight. He can pop me. Any other comments you want to make?
No, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
I believe the next one's mine
The next
also.
one's yours as well. First reading, ordinance 2012-2, an ordinance to amend Title 15, Chapter 6 of the Laverne Municipal Code regarding parking. All right. What are we changing on this?
Actually, there are some changes that have been made, but the majority of those are not mine. I'm seeking to add 15609, which prohibits parking on certain surfaces. A lot of the complaints that we get now are of neighbors parking on the grass, tracking mud, things of that nature. This section addresses that, and it basically states that you have to park on gravel, a driveway, or another approved engineering type surface that is approved by the Director of Public Works. Now, it does allow for parking in a backyard without being on a driveway or gravel if you have a 6-foot tall privacy fence or an opaque type fencing material that is 6 foot tall also.
And as far as the other changes that we're proposing, 15-601 was really kind of contradictory to what we were wanting to do. It originally kind of said you can park on the street if you do such and such. Well, we're taking that out so that we're not kind of contradicting ourselves. 15604, we're changing that provision a little bit there. We're saying except as provided by section 15608, which is the section that the police department can issue a permit, a temporary permit for like parties or special events.
Right.
You know, we don't allow parking on the street at any time, so we're kind of clarifying that a little better. We did remove, I believe it was number 11 in that list, which says you can't park where the city has painted the curb, either yellow or red, I think it was. Well, we have never painted any curb anywhere in the city, so we took that out as well. So I think those are the other changes, except for what Derek added with 15609.
And believe it or not, we have got an enormous amount of complaints on this very issue. The sidewalks, the parking in the yards. We've had, like I said, I can go back and pull up email after email that I receive and pass along to them.
Well, this also addresses commercial property also with the same aspects.
Anybody have thoughts, comments? You're getting those same emails.
Pretty much just cleaning it up.
Yes. Good job. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Number 8, Resolution 2012-2, a resolution to amend the personnel rules and regulations regarding business meals and fuel card use. Okay? Mr. Gaston.
Mayor and Board, there are a lot of things that are going on, a lot of research that we're working on for the handbook in general, which is the next item. There are a couple of things that we had to address right away as a result of an audit by the IRS, and one of them is to have a policy regarding meals and business meals. And I've worked, I did some research, talked to MTAS, which doesn't have a policy, to TML, which has no guidelines for policies. Spoke to other cities that don't have policies. Most of them don't. I think Gallatin did. Dave Crawford sent me some stuff. But basically, we've come up with a policy. The policy statement reads that business meals are permissible for elected officials, members of the governing body, and/or employees or designees acting on behalf of the city. However, business meals must fall under the definition of business meals as defined by this policy, the guidelines set forth, and those currently noted in Appendix 7. We wanted to not do anything to interfere with what we currently have in regards to travel, et cetera, have conflicting policy. Some of the key points of this is the definition, meals brought into city buildings, or meals purchased for the city functions, large group meeting, training, et cetera. If the training or the meeting is even off-site, all of this is permissible. when deemed necessary. One of the things that the IRS had us focus on is what's taxable as well as what's non-taxable. Those types of things are taxable. Meals purchased for clients, et cetera. The board or the mayor may have to entertain clients' prospective new revenue to the city, et cetera. Those things are allowed, they're permissible, and they're not taxable. However, meals purchased for individual employees, and we put including supervisors, managers, department heads, or elected officials whereby city business is not conducted is permissible if deemed necessary, but it will be taxable if the mayor decided that I was just such a nice person that you wanted to take me to Ruth Chris for lunch, then basically what that would mean is that would be taxable both to you and for me. So don't want to stop any of you all from doing that. That's the third paragraph down. When applicable, the city will pay or reimburse individuals for expenses incurred. So we try to think of all of those things. Try to also keep in mind in order as far as submitting it to department heads, to supervisors, et cetera. We want to make sure that we continue to do what we normally do, and then those things would go to finance for final review. On the top of page 2, a couple of things that we ought to note. Reimbursement for correctly certified business meals is not treated as taxable income. Just want to state that to keep people from asking questions. And then the most important thing, violation of this policy is subject to ethics sanctions if applicable. Since elected officials are elected officials and not employees, they're not subject to rules and regulations like the rest of us, discipline through the personnel manual. So there may be sanctions that the board may take against other elected officials or people that are appointed, et cetera. So this policy allows us to do that. Any questions on that? So on the fuel cart use policy, we have fuel carts in place, and just the purpose of the policy is to provide guidelines for a lot of things. One, to have a uniform program that we're utilizing the fuel carts. So currently that's Fleet 1. Right now the program is that those fuel carts are with the vehicle. You have PIN numbers that are assigned to you that are unique. So most of that, all of that doesn't really change. We just have a policy in place. If the need for additional cards, that'll be up to the key people, department heads, et cetera, to determine that. A couple of things that are in here are on page 3. We put in there, in the event that a card is accidentally used for any purpose other than what it's intended to. In the policy, we state, well, it's intended for fuel purposes only, not for incidentals, not for snacks when you're filling up at Kroger or whatever the case may be. That is for fuel purposes only, and not for personal use. But shouldn't happen. But if somebody accidentally fills up their car with the city cart, we wanted to make sure that, first of all, they need to report it. They need to let us know that. Failure to do so, to notify your supervisor, is not acceptable, and then try to make that generic. But basically, it's just saying, well, I'm not giving any regards to the policy, and if they're an employee, then we'll deal with them according to whatever we need to do, up to and including discharge. A second offense may result in ethics sanctions, again, for elected officials, or discipline up to and including discharge, and loss of privilege of the use of the card. Could be discharged, could be, depending on a case-by-case, what's considered to be egregious or not, but we needed to have something in the policy, have a policy on what we would do in the event that we did that. And then we also try to put in there also that things had to be reconciled. I'm sure they are currently, but making sure that the person knows that it's their responsibility, or the department head or whoever determines that. That's all I have for those two.
Very good. Any questions? Thank you.
The next, I'll stay for the next item. Just basically, hopefully, next month I'll come to you with at least a shell of what everything will look like for an update of overhaul for the rules and regulations handbook, hopefully within the next few days. If I can stay on target, I can send that information to the attorneys, to Kara Shea that's going to work with us, et cetera, and then we'll go from there.
That done. Sounds good.
Yep.
Yeah, we need that done. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next, discussion, generator maintenance and/or replacement. Mr. McCormick.
Yes, ma'am. This is basically just an FYI. As you know, we have a preventive maintenance contract that's out on our emergency backup generators. We currently have 5 generators that are in service, one of which we did an emergency purchase on last year to replace 2 generators that had went down at the backup communications center. Of those 5, 3 in this past PM last week, 3 of those 5 that are remaining had some issues that were keeping them from being able to be run. One was as simple as a battery replacement, which is in the general maintenance anyway. The second one required a electronics board, which we actually took off of the 2 that we took out of service last year. So we were able to do that with just some service from some old parts that we had already in stock. The third one, however, is the backup generator for the backup communications. It's the secondary level of communications for the police department. It's also the same site that Rutherford County EMS's primary repeater for Laverne is on. That's at the Mason Road water tank. If you remember back several years back when we purchased these generators, they were bought as commercial/residential generators. We had a long discussion that they were not exactly what we were needing as emergency backup communications generators. The point that we're at right now is that generator at Mason Road is currently down. It's been down for about 5 days now, so that generator, we're not going to deem this as an emergency purchase of any kind. We are getting quotes back now. We're in excess of $1,000 worth of repair right now on that generator. It could run as high as $2,000, $3,000 to repair this generator. Basically, just bringing this forth to you to let you know that what we were afraid of when we purchased these, not being top of the line, not being an emergency service rated backup generator, we're approaching these generators starting to fail. I would say that we're going to be able to do this repair this time probably for several $1,000s, and I would suggest that that's what we do. I have gotten some preliminary cost projections back in replacing that generator with the appropriate piece of equipment. Been working with Chief Walker as well on the things that are actually needed for that. That generator alone, just the generator and the switch for that's going to run about $22,500, and that's not including install. We're probably looking at anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000 for install. So about a $25,000, nothing like we were doing for the backup center. That generator cost us $80,000 to get put in place. The other thing, and myself and Chief Walker were talking about this as well, we had a lot of major repairs done on the primary dispatch center here at the police department, the generator that backs that building up, and anytime we have power outages, which we have a lot of, we've had several this past year, that generator is in desperate need rather than being put in repair again. Should we have another problem arise with it, it definitely needs to be plotted to be replaced with a new one. It's been there since that building was original. So these are not things that we can just not address as they come up. Right now, I'm not going to say that we're going to need to spend $25,000 to replace that generator, but we definitely, with our capital plans and stuff, that's probably something we need to look at least putting back in the plan. There's also a generator exactly like the one that's at Mason Road at McFarland Point. It had a run issue. It actually run 200 gallons of LP gas out over about a 2.5, 3 day period of time. One of the reasons is we don't have remote notification on those generators because they're not of emergency service grade backup. So this generator ran and we had no idea it was running. I do a 14-day fuel check on these sites, but obviously I don't go out 2 or 3 times a day and check on each one of these sites. So that's the type of things by us not purchasing it originally. What we should have purchased, this is just another one of those things where the cost is going to start outweighing of purchasing, correct. We saved it in the beginning, but we're gonna start spending it on the backside. So, as I said, this is just FYI, these things. I'm working with Felicia as well. I think this repair maybe will be around $3,000, hopefully under that, but we definitely need to look at replacing at least the one at Mason Road, maybe in the next, not upcoming, but the following fiscal year.
Questions?
Really a question, just the only comment is, if we know this is coming, let's not wait till it's emergency repair, let's, as Ricky was saying, let's build it.
And this is a third, it's basically a third level. We have had to switch back to our UHF and VHF radio systems. In the past, Metro's doing some P25 upgrades on their system, and we did have to switch back over to our UH and VHF equipment. These are the sites where these generators are at. So if they go down, I mean, we can pull a generator over there and do it, but we all know how that works. When we need things to go the right way, we need it to happen right now. We don't have time. It's kind of like CAD with the chief over there in the police department. You start dropping 911 calls, it's an issue.
It's a problem.
Communications go down and you can't talk to get a car where it needs to go. We got issues as well. So, but I will keep y'all aware of what's going on, at least with this one site. Any other questions?
Bruce?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Number 11, ordinance to amend capital plan, parks and recreation, vehicle and mower / GovDeals. Jeff.
Yes, ma'am. What I've asked for this, we have $10,000 in our capital plan for this year that was earmarked for 2 utility vehicles, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have a need for those vehicles at this time, but I do have a need for 2 zero-turn mowers, and I'd like to apply those funds to that, and then whatever balance is remaining, whatever monies are generated from the sale of that surplus equipment on GovDeals, I'd like to apply to that as well. So just moving some money around to cover the cost of those 2 Z-turn mowers.
In order to do that, we'll need to do an ordinance to amend the capital plan like we have in the past. So you're looking at 2 months there to get that done. First reading, obviously, we can have probably Tuesday night. Second reading will be in March, and then he can hopefully work that out with the purchasing as well. I think Phyllis was also going to talk about something.
Previously, when we were managing the softball tournaments and softball league, we had basically had a checking account that any kind of league fees went into, and we paid the umpires out of them. And that bank account has been sitting there for over a year now and not being used. There's about $35,000 in there. And I would like to ask the board to close that bank account and move that funds to the general fund, unless the board sees fit to keep it open for any other reason. We're accumulating charges every month, bank charges that, you know, $20, $30 a month.
That'll eat that up pretty
That's
quick.
just- yeah.
And that's not really an action item by the board.
Okay.
She just wanted to
Cleaning
bring
up.
it to you and
Didn't know
see
if there was some reason if the board would want to keep it. I mean, now that we're not managing the leagues anymore, I wanted to see if you had any problem with me closing that.
I have none.
Unless you see any need out.
Not at all.
Okay, good deal. All right. Okay, the big discussion. Discussion, motion to approve bid for police department vehicles. Look at Felicia Green. I believe you and the chief have this one.
I'll put my 2 cents worth in now, Chief, can I? These came back a lot cheaper than we expected. We were really expecting $30,000 a piece, and so, you know, you're pleasantly surprised when they come back at that. At this time, what I would like to do at this phase of it, I would like to have the board approve purchasing 20. Chief wants to go off state contract for a few for his people that are not in need of police packaged vehicles. I can put these, if I can get permission to order them, I can put these in line to be built. They're still looking at 90 days to 120 days out. But I'm hoping next month to come back with the package of everything that's gonna go on them. And then before April because it won't take any time to get the financing together. Because I talked to Ford and they have a municipal lease purchase program that's really reasonable. So, and I know from past experience that when I get all the money together, I'm gonna be able to get a good finance price,
And
a good
we
interest rate.
aren't cheap, we're still going with the lease on the majority of the
It's a
cars?
lease purchase.
Purchase, that's what I'm saying, lease purchase.
There's no miles restrictions, nothing.
Okay, so everybody's happy with this.
Is it similar to what we were talking, 3 years, and then the fourth year we purchased it for
Fourth year, $1.
$1? Okay.
Or you can do it 4 years, fifth year $1, you know. I would like to see us do the 3 and 1 because we are looking at doing 10 each year for the next 3 years. I would like to go ahead and go with Ford of Murfreesboro because Gold Circle Ford was $61 a car cheaper, but they're out of Jackson, Tennessee. And you're looking at getting cars that we'll be able to keep them at Ford and then have them taken to where their installs of everything's going to go. Ford will house them for us. And it would be a lot easier to be right here, you know, in the same county at least.
I agree there.
So what I would like is the board to vote on the cars or on the police interceptors to order 20 because the chief's going to, next month we'll decide exactly what he's doing with the others, and I'll have you a price for those. But we would like to get these 20 in because these are going to take longer to get back. And if we get these 20 in, then we think that we'll be on a roll. Next month I can come back and say, here's the package price of everything going on this car.
And this was budgeted.
Yes, it is budgeted.
For
this year.
Well, and
This year and then next.
but I'm not expecting them to be
They
in
won't
before
be
July
here.
1st.
Right.
That's why we did, because even in talking,
I'd love for them to be, but I don't see them being here by July 1st.
that I remember us having the
Now,
conversation.
if we were to buy if you didn't want to lease and you wanted to use that money to buy a few of the street cars, we could get those in probably this year, but, and just pay for those outright with the money from this year, but you won't get any of these in this year. I
We
don't
knew
see them
going
coming
into
in.
this would be a
It's-
longer process.
We'll probably need to change the capital plan to adjust for whatever the cost will be, because just roughly, I know the cost is gonna be more than what we put in the budget for the capital plan.
But
So
this is something that is needed.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the cars are needed.
when we did the capital plan, we just had a rough,
Right,
we just
right,
basically threw a number out there, so we'll have some good numbers this time.
okay.
And the thing about the coming in cheaper, it is cheaper than everybody expected for the police package vehicles. The 4 that we're looking at right now, at this time, that's what we're looking at to replace for CID particularly. Those are statewide contract vehicles that are going to be potentially as much as $4,000 or $5,000 or more less than what the bid on the police package is. So we're going to save even more money by doing those
That's good.
non-police vehicles that CID will use for the work they need to do.
Are they actually gonna get to have matching, cars, it's gonna, not one have one thing and one have a,
You're talking about for the police package?
No, for those over there, they're gonna get 4 identical cars.
No,
okay,
no, they'll have just different kinds of vehicles. We may do F-150 pickup, we may do, I don't think we can afford to do a Versa. It's one of the cars on the contract, and I don't think anybody we have will fit.
No.
So, we told Conrad that's what he was gonna do. He said he'd have to be like Hightower on Police Academy and rip the seats out.
He almost had to do that on the Magnum.
Yeah, he did. But that's some more savings that's coming along with it too.
but they're getting vehicles that are not dilapidated?
No, they're brand
They're
new.
good, okay.
They're brand new.
Okay.
We have a list of the state contract.
Okay.
But I would like the board to go ahead and approve the 20 Tuesday night so that they can be put in line. If y'all don't approve it, we don't get to order them, we don't get to order them until it's all approved. And they did tell me they're looking at least 90 days out.
Well, we knew that when we even started this, that we would probably be lower on the totem pole in getting these when we got them ordered.
What was the, you said there was gonna be a difference. Do we have any idea ballpark what we're talking difference? I know we kind of tough this.
The capital plan, we were looking at a 4 or maybe a 5-year lease plan, so the payments were gonna be stretched out and be less per year. If we do the 3-year, I mean, I just did some rough numbers, and it's probably gonna be about double what we put in the capital plan.
Okay, here it is, right here. We budgeted 61 for this year because we knew we were just getting our foot in the door. Then it looks like we budgeted for 2012-13 roughly a 362.5. And then 13-14 we budgeted 478. And then and this is just for the leases.
But we are adding 10 each year.
And, I mean, we've got it budgeted all the way through. We've got money budgeted. And it looks like 14-15, it was 593.5. So we're staying consistent right in there with what we were, except for this coming year, which was 362.5. But we kept it in our, all the way up to our 10-year plan. We had it in there.
I think when now that thinking about it, I think we knew that we weren't gonna get the vehicles for the whole year this year. That's why we only budgeted the 60-something, so then we may be in line then.
We split like 3 months worth for this fiscal year and then the other 9 for next year.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Now that comes with the full maintenance plan. That was the
We're gonna add the maintenance, the 3-year, we're gonna add the 3-year warranty. It'll come with the 3-year, we're gonna add to the 5-year.
75,000 miles maintenance. 75,000, 3,000 miles, 60, I think it was.
What kind of mileage is put on it a year? Would you say typical?
Roughly, that we're putting on just under 12.
So it won't even come into play more than likely as far as exceeding the 75,000. Because I think
not projected in the 4 year.
Because the thinking here that we went with the lease was we would save money in long haul with the amount of maintenance that we've had over the years. So
What do we
and with the intent to move it to other departments would make this car 6 years maintenance free.
And we're also gonna be looking at doing a bid for the oil changes and the tires and things, so that everything, you'll have a bid, everything will be in place for those things also. Those will be in place too. Should be a cost savings over all of what we've been spending.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Any other questions?
The only thing I would like to see, and maybe for just more for the public's benefit, Chief, you could talk about the current condition of our vehicles so people understand the
good
need
point.
that we have.
Director Skinner's got some information that one of his folks in the fleet did for us, and there's expenditures in the last 1.5 to 2 years, on some of them have been as high as $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 for repairs.
We also have a numerous number that are 99, 97,
And-
2000.
And some of them not police package vehicles.
Right.
They weren't built to do that.
And also, the reason, I know a lot of people, oh, look at those brand new vehicles. The guys and girls, they take care of them. They take care of the cars. And I mean, some of these that they think are brand new, that look so sharp, I think were, what was it, the 99, and we all got so tickled because that was a brand new car. But I mean, they take care of them to the very best of their ability. They keep them clean. And I think our newest car was actually a 2010. Correct me if I'm wrong.
We have a 2011.
Tahoe.
That was Bob, and one 2010.
And those were both consequences of accidents,
The
though.
last police package vehicle, Bob, was in 2008.
So, but the newest ones were only because we had two vehicles that were totaled.
Yes.
So, I mean, there was a misconception that they're running around in these brand new, matter of fact, we just had one that we had to scrounge around, well, the one that I had ended up, so, you know,
And the Chargers do still look nice.
yeah, they look nice.
They're not holding up as a police packaged vehicle. And they may look nice, but just because the car looks good doesn't mean
It
it's.
runs, it'll run.
I believe it's the intention of this board last year and this year. We did this again as long-term cost savings, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, back in 2000, they did something similar, and the next year they put a nix on the actual lease program. For the city to see that,
It's got to be continuous.
the money come back, it has to be, you know, each year. We can't do it for 1 year and stop and come back 3 years later. So,
Yes.
That's why we're in the shape we're in, right?
Exactly.
To buy one or two and then wait 3 years and buy one or two. And you got the situation like we've got there all the way back from as old as 15 years ago.
I'm already making notes on my calendar, though, when it's time to start coming back for the new ones.
Do we have any other comments, concerns?
Thank you.
Sounds good. Okay. I think one of us were off. All right. Number 13, Chief Walker, we're going to discuss our crime rates.
One of the things I do want to say, though, is Felicia and Lieutenant Rue have spent an awful lot of time looking through this over the last well over a year. I talked to Lieutenant Rue one time before I ever came to work for the city about vehicles and how we did it in my former life, and why we bought vehicles each year, cycling out, and it's to reduce the costs, tremendous cost savings by doing that in the long run, because we can sell them. And the other problem we have too, we have gone through previously buying vehicles that were non-pursuit vehicles and used them for pursuit vehicles on the road, and they don't hold up as long. And the other problem is we have used seized vehicles much too regularly, so those will be sold as we move those out and cycle those out, and that go back to the drug fund to handle some things there. There are some things that you all heard from me during the budget presentation, during our planning meeting, and that was comparing Laverne's things concerning crime stats with surrounding agencies. But I don't have the benefit of being able, one of these days we need to look at putting a screen back here, so if you're talking this way, you can talk about it, and you all can see it here too. Go on to the next one.
That is in the works.
No,
We
that's
discussed
not
it.
the power. I need the power. That's the sheet that is actually in, and I'll have you a copy of that. I don't know. I think Detective Stalinsky has them now. If you would hand out there, please. Go back to the original. Thank you. You've kind of seen this before, but I changed the title on it. In Laverne in 2011, we got some information just recently, the end of last week from TBI concerning our preliminary 2011 crime statistics. Those are preliminary still. They're still being worked on. And there are still some issues because of our records management system and the way things go. And we're having to correct a few things with them, but they look pretty good. But instead of doing just the 2010 and comparing us with others, I also added in comparing us to us this time. Next slide. If you remember, I talked to you about Mount Juliet, Lebanon, Columbia, Cookeville, Gallatin, Smyrna, and Murfreesboro. The reason for this was agencies that are about our size, agencies that are fairly close to us, and populations that were very similar to ours. And one of the things I found out, as I told you a few weeks ago, Laverne really isn't a bad place to live like some people would have you to believe. It's not that. That's not the case. According to the TBI's 2010 crime report, LPD, out of that group of agencies or cities, had the fewest number of officers per 1,000 population. We have 1.44, I believe it is, per 1,000. Laverne had the third lowest of that group of Group A crime rate in area cities per 100,000 population. Now, 100,000 population is a statistically determined accurate rate to compare crime rates with municipalities all over the country. The FBI began using it. TBI uses it today, so what we have to do is convert and not think about 1,000 population for the crime rates, but 100,000. So we have to adjust accordingly so that it's much more statistically accurate when you compare apples and apples. LPD, as you remember, of that group has the second lowest paid civilian employees, the second lowest paid dispatchers, and the third lowest paid patrol officers or police officers of those surrounding. And I'm not going to get into that tonight. I'm going to talk about crime stats. You can see the number of sworn officers, and this is based on 2010. At the end of 2011, we had 51 sworn officer positions. It doesn't mean they're all filled, but that's what we have. Compared to Mount Juliet, when you look at Mount Juliet's population, it's a little bit less than us, and they have 45 officers, just 2 less than us. Lebanon has 69, Columbia 87. They only have a population 2,000 more than Laverne according to the 2010 census, but they have had 40 additional sworn police officer positions. And then you can see the others as well. The Group A offenses, when you look at them, those are all of the crimes against persons, property, and society. Now, persons will be everything from homicides to rapes to assaults to other such crimes against persons, theft, burglaries, etc. for property crimes. And then against society, those crimes are drugs, prostitution, gambling, those type things. If you look at the Group A offenses, ours was 6,652.8 per 100,000 population. 2010 now. Now, I can't do this comparison for you for 2011 simply because we don't have the data for these other agencies for 2011, the preliminary. We only have our own, so I'm comparing us to us when I get to that in a minute. The domestic offenses are 7.5 per 1,000. I dropped back to 1,000 there because I'm not comparing us state averages or anything else. I'm looking at these areas, these municipalities. If you'll look how low we are, 7.5. Mount Juliet's 5.2, Lebanon 14.4, Columbia 33.6, Cookeville 13.3, Gallatin 11.9, Smyrna 7, and Murfreesboro is 19.7. But if you go back to that middle and look at those Group A offenses, at those numbers, Lebanon, Columbia, and Cookeville up on the Cumberland Plateau, the rural county, a lot of people think being on the plateau with Cookeville, they do have a little place up there called Tennessee Tech, which brings in periodic numbers. But when you look at their actual population, you can see what their crime rate is compared to ours. It's almost twice the crime rate of Laverne, according to the TBI's numbers. And those are also numbers supplied to the FBI. So, you know what? All these folks that say Laverne is so bad, it may be a little bit, quote, safer in Smyrna, a little bit, quote, safer in Mount Juliet. But as far as everybody else is concerned, we're the safest of the others. When you look at what's there and what's reported, the crimes that are reported to us. Next one. That shows the number of sworn officers. You can see, when you see the picture, it makes it a little bit easier to kind of understand. We have the lowest number, the 1.44, and the next lowest to us is Mount Juliet, and then it goes from there. If you look at Lebanon and Columbia, the number of sworn officers per 1,000 population, you see it's quite a bit higher than us. Almost, Columbia is actually almost twice. Wow. Excellent. The Group A offenses, when you look at them, you look at the number of offenses, and then you look at the number per 100,000 populations. Generally speaking, those are proportionate across the board. But it kind of gives you an idea, seeing the two of them there side by side, what it actually looks like. And again, Laverne is on the left in the bright yellow of each, and not that bad, folks. Next slide, please. 2010 domestic offenses. You've heard me talk about it. That's one of the things that really concerns me. Our problem is there's not a whole lot we can do about those except respond and neutralize and then prosecute after the fact if that's the case. It's hard to prevent those because we're not there. They happen within homes and other places where we don't normally have the folks there to intervene before it occurs. And I think a lot of that is probably the sign of the times. With the fiscal climate we've had, economic climate we've had, with a lot of things happening. Next slide, please. This is actually a table that you have a copy of. You can read easier. It's a part of a table that goes through and compares Laverne against Laverne, 2010 versus 2011. Our number of sworn officers did increase. You added four for us for fiscal year FY12, which actually the 1st of July we got them hired. You know that. We swore them in, last month? And officially. And our two guys will graduate that had not been through the academy, will graduate the 16th of March at Toledo. And they'll be back and hit the road too. Sworn officers per 1,000 population, it increased a little bit, 8.3%. When you look at our total offenses, we had 2,168 in 2010 that were reported, and according to TBI, we had 2024, which is a decrease of 6.6%. So even where we were last year, we're improving again even in 2011. Now, the reason I say that, the men and women of the Laverne Police Department, I've told you many times, are good, honest, hard-working folks. They appreciate having the opportunity to work here. They stay here. Sometimes you wonder why. They're the lowest paid anywhere in the area in that group of folks. But we had one young man in December that left, went to Wilson County Sheriff's Department. When he left here and walked through the door at the Sheriff's Department in Wilson County, he automatically got a $5.38 raise per hour. But he wanted to stay, he just couldn't afford to. But a lot of them do, and they work very hard, and they're very conscientious. That's a 6.6% decrease. Part of the problems we have with our clearance rate, we only cleared, it says 17.39% of the offenses reported in 2010 and 21.5%, 21.54 in 2011, which was an increase of 4.2%. But a whole lot of that has to do with the problems we have with CAD and the records management system, with things not getting there and getting TBI that show arrests being made, et cetera. The Group A offenses actually decreased to 16.6%. Now, one of the things we have is the crimes against persons increased 15.9%. That's why it's in red. But the crimes against property decreased 12.2%, and against society 18.2%. Now, the other thing that concerns me here is the domestic violence victims offenses actually increased 29.3%. And I'll get into a little bit more of that in just a minute on another slide. Overall arrests increased 15.9%. You see the adults and the juveniles proportionately. The arrest per 100,000 population, of course, is 15.9. And then the Group B arrests, DUIs, driving on the revoke, other misdemeanors similar to that are not included in the crimes indexing, but that we consider important too, are those Group B arrests, and those increased 22.2% last year over 2010. Next slide. That actually illustrates for you the Group A offenses in Laverne. You can see where the increases and the decreases are, except for homicide. Now, with homicide, we had 2 and 2. So homicides were even. Everything else, there were changes. Next slide, please. I like this one because you can actually see that everything on the right are those increases. Everything on the left are those that decreased, and it goes through. Starting at the bottom and going up, homicide, of course, was no change. Kidnapping or abductions decreased 37.5%. Rapes decreased 43.8%. Now, there's one thing that concerns me there with other sexual offenses other than what's classified as rape. I'll address those here in just a minute. That's a concern too. Robberies decreased 38.9%. All assaults, simple and aggravated, including domestic, increased 6.7%. Burglaries 1.3%. But I'll tell you something about the burglaries in a minute when I talk about the arrest. Motor vehicle thefts in the city decreased 14.9%. Theft from a motor vehicle, or what you normally call a vehicle burglary, it's called theft of motor vehicle in the classification, decreased 46.4%, and all the other thefts combined decreased 15.7%. Next slide, please. When you look at these, and you look at where these lines are, and you think our number of officers per 1,000 increased 8%, our total offenses decreased, the percent cleared increased, crimes against persons we know increased, property decreased, crimes to society decreased, arrests increased, Group B arrest increased, and the rest per 100,000 increased. Next slide. These are the notable changes. Crime dropped here in 2011 compared to 2010. 6.6%. Nobody deserves the credit for that except the men and women who are out there every day working and doing their jobs, serving the citizens of what I think is a fantastic city to live in. I've been here 8.5 years and I absolutely love it. It ain't Dunlap, but I love Laverne. Robberies were down, kidnapping, abduction down, assaults were up 6.7%. Here's the kicker. Domestic-related assaults went up 25.8%. We can't control that number. The only thing I know that can control it is the economy get better, and then if something does occur, we arrest them and take them, and the court does something that convinces them they should never do this again. But the recidivism rate for domestic assaults is extremely high. We know that. You know that, for one thing, because it's being discussed right now in the state legislature. That's one of the public safety components that were built in that is being looked at to make changes in, and that's increase the penalties for the misdemeanor domestic assaults. Burglaries were up, but look at this. Burglary arrests increased 100%. Now, they went from 17 to 34, and that's 100%. But that's 34 folks that were taken either out of a house or coming from a house that they latched onto, and several of those have occurred over the last few months that I've actually been there and seen, and it makes you feel good. We know those motor vehicle thefts decreased. We know the theft from motor vehicles decreased. All other thefts decreased. Arrests increased 15.9%, and then, of course, the homicides were the same number. Now, the homicides in 2011 were all solved. The arrest was made on Tough Nail where there was a domestic. It was an ex-husband that came back, actually didn't harm the ex-wife, actually wound up killing her best friend from Mount Juliet. And we all remember that case. It was a very sad situation. But we were there, we made that arrest and took him into custody, and he's going through the process now. The other one, sadly, that case was cleared as a result of the death of the person who committed the homicide. That was a husband and wife in Lake Forest where she shot and killed him and then took her own life. So that was a murder-suicide. So those two were solved or cleared anyway, and you know, that's not too bad considering considering. Thank you all. Because of the men and women that work hard, you're looking at some good numbers, and they're very proud to serve you with professionalism, integrity, duty, and honor. They're wolves, they are sheep, but we are the sheepdogs, and we take that job very seriously. And that's the way we look at it, is we're supposed to be the protectors. Another way to say it is Canis pastoralis sumus, Latin for we are the sheepdog. Any questions?
And there they go.
There they go.
That was perfect timing. You planned that.
Rue, did you set that up or what? I mean. Sure.
Okay.
Any questions?
Awesome.
I wanted to be able to do this tonight so that the public can see it and hear it. But hopefully, we'll be able to do some things and we'll get it on the website and have it out there. And hopefully down the road, within another year and a half or so, or maybe a little sooner, we'll get to the point to where we can even have it out there every day, and the folks here can actually see it on the web.
We're working on
website.
that, aren't we?
Yes, ma'am, we're working very hard on it.
Great job, Chief. Thank you and all your staff for everything you do for us. Do you have any questions? Bruce? Wonderful job. At this time, I have a lot of hungry city employees. So if you don't mind, we want to have some really good discussion on these next two items. I don't want to be hurried in those. So if y'all don't mind, I'd like to get these employees something to eat quickly, if you don't mind. So we'll take about a 15-minute break, if that's okay with everyone.